showing out, making moves, no doubt. FFA pride, it's what we're all about. From classroom dreams to real world flair, we got the stories you won't find anywhere. Beyond the jacket where the stories unfold, voices of the future, fearless and bold. Tune in now, let the passion ignite. It's more than a jacket, it's a way of life. Beyond the jacket where passion meets purpose.
Well, welcome back to the Beyond the Jacket podcast. We're super excited to be sitting down with some of Texas' finest FFA members. I'm Paige Cruz, your host, and let's get into who our guests are. Why don't y'all introduce yourselves?
My name is Riley Ferris. I'm from Madisonville, Texas, and I'm currently serving as the Texas FFA State President.
And then, howdy guys, my name is Judson Boyd. I go by Judd, but I'm from Lido, Texas, representing the Area 4 Association.
Awesome. Well, it's so nice to meet you guys. I'm from Florida, so Texas is definitely kind of a foreign state for me in y'all's landscape. But let's just jump into what your roles are on the association. President, Vice President, what is your roles under the association?
So our roles are very differently, so I'll let Judd talk about his role here in a second. My role as state president is myself and the Texas FFA State First Vice President defer our first year of college, and we travel to 3 high schools a day, 5 days a week, leading about an hour-long leadership workshops with any and all members that we can see. So by the end of our year, we'll end up visiting about 350 chapters, I would say, and 24 total weeks of travel. In between those weeks, we do different events like Day in the Capitol, National Convention, area conventions, and different things like that. But I will let Judd elaborate on what his role as vice president is.
Yeah, so I'm a state vice president, which basically means we get to do college and state office at the same time. So I'm currently studying at Texas A&M University, animal science and ag business major. But on the FFA side, we balance business and industry tours as well as join Riley and Cody on our area travels to give workshops to those students across our area. So my reach is from Aledo, which is the corner right by Fort Worth, all the way up to Wichita Falls, across to Ballinger, and then down to Brownwood. So we have a pretty good stretch. Texas FFA is broken up into 12 areas, but throughout our year we get to meet with business and industry professionals. A highlight has been visiting with the Texas Department of Agriculture. We got to do a talk with them in Green, Texas for the Family Land Heritage event. So our job kind of varies, but we get to do a lot of business and industry communication.
That's super exciting, and that's a lot of schools to visit in a span of 24 weeks. Man, you're a busy gal. Couldn't imagine doing that. And then obviously college and state office at the same time is quite impressive. I ran for state office. I didn't get it, but I'm so fortunate to be here, and this is what my life consists of now. But I don't know if I could have balanced college and state office at the same time. So how did this process work? Did you always dream of being a state officer, or was this something your senior year you were like, oh yeah, I think I'll give it a try? How'd that work?
Honestly, my first day of freshman ag class, I didn't like to talk to people. I didn't want to be involved in the competition, like all the competition sides of things. But my ag teacher pretty much recognized my last name on the roster, and it was game over. She started throwing me on the contest, whether I liked it or not. And before too long, I absolutely just fell in love with it. She convinced me into my sophomore year to run for district office, and I served on an incredible district officer team all throughout my junior year. Being on that team encouraged me to run for area. And about halfway through my senior year, I was kind of thinking that I probably wasn't going to run. I think state officers kind of have this air about them that it's unreachable. Like, you almost can't do it, right? And so toward the end of my senior year, I kind of had that mindset, and I wasn't going to do it. And my area, surrounded me with a ton of support and love, and they convinced me to run, and I am so, so glad I did.
And I have kind of a similar story to Riley. Like, freshman year, we got into our ag class, and I had a super supportive ag teacher that pushed me out of my comfort zone. We talk about voluntelling. So our ag teachers did a lot of voluntelling. So you're going to do this radio broadcasting competition, sound great, it's going to be a good time. So I did it with a couple of my buddies, got super involved. We found the leadership side. And like Riley, I got to be a chapter, district, and area officer, and now state officer.
Wow, that's impressive. Quite the resume for sure. And I can attest to the community standing behind you and being voluntold for sure. That I think that's such an FFA term that a lot of people might not catch, but it's that slight push, quite maybe off a cliff sometimes, or at least it feels like it. But by the time you hit the bottom, you're like, man, this is a newfound passion. This is something I love, and it sets you apart. But besides your association jacket, what'd you do in your chapter off? Like, were you an officer on your chapter level? What were your favorite CDEs or LDEs, or what made you passionate about the Blue Jacket?
When I was in high school, I was very passionate about cutting horses. I still am. I've raised and shown them basically my entire life, so that kind of served as my supervised agricultural experience. So I was already really involved in the ag industry, but like I said, talking in front of people was not my forte, so I wasn't really planning on doing it. But my teacher threw me on as president of the chapter conducting team, like that term voluntelling, and I loved it. Just kind of the way it made your mind work. You had to work as a team without talking to each other. I thought it was so fun. She also threw me on this quiz. That wasn't really my thing. I learned that I liked talking in front of people by the end of it all. LDE-wise, my favorite of all time, though, was ag issues. My dad always told me that I argue anyway, so I might as well try to make myself good at it, right? So I love the ag issues, LDE. CDE-wise, I wasn't a big judger. I wasn't good. I did wool judging and horse judging. Wasn't really good at either. So I loved the marketing plan CDE, and that was definitely my favorite. But I also did the speaking development event, so I did senior prepared speaking and extemporaneous.
Wow, that's well-rounded for sure. And some of those I don't think we have in Florida as far as like marketing plan and things of that issue. And I always wanted to do ag issues, but we could never get enough people to build a team. And I was always like, dang, that one looks fun, right? And of course, I argue enough too. It might be a FFA quality.
Absolutely.
What about you, Chad?
So I'm kind of unconventional in the way that I've always loved plants. And my ag teacher freshman year, he asked me, he said, okay, so what do you have at home? And I was talking to him, and I got involved showing cattle as well, but plants were a super big passion. So he kind of, again, we use that term voluntel, and he told me to do the floral competition. And I told him, I said, I don't know much about flowers, so we're just going to jump right into it. And I actually had the blessing of placing at that invitational that we went to, and he didn't let me leave. So I learned to find a passion for judging plants. I also did the plant ID contest, which was super duper amazing and fun, and I enjoyed it as well. That's
awesome. I did a floriculture project, or maybe it was a CDE. I'm not quite sure what it was because I wasn't very good at it, to tell you the truth. I did it my senior year because I decided, I was like, you know what? I want to do something I've never done before.
Right,
I was the judger. I did all the LDEs in that aspect, but plants are not my forte. I do not have a green thumb. We talk about that a lot on the podcast. And I made this arrangement of with flowers of the emblem, and I remember it being like, I have the utmost respect for every florist ever, because I'm not able to do that, not at all. But besides all of that, what are you looking forward most to at Commodity Classic? I know you guys just got back from meeting with Secretary Rollins.
Absolutely. So we will be speaking at the general session later on today, and myself and Judd will be on stage introducing Secretary Rollins, and she is someone who is very near and dear to Texas FFA members all across the entire state. She did serve as a Texas FFA state officer back when she was in high school and college, so it's definitely nice to see someone so high up. It kind of shows kind of where our futures could go, state office, especially our teammates who are in college. They're freshmen in college. Not everyone has it figured out when they're freshmen. Most people don't. Me and Cody, we aren't in college yet, so we definitely don't have it figured out. So it's definitely nice to see somebody who was in our exact same shoes work their way up so high, because it kind of shows what that work effort and what that blue jacket can get you, and it's really inspiring for us.
Absolutely. I always say, like, the possibilities in the blue jacket are almost like a rocket taking off. You never quite know where you're going to land, and I think that happened for me. Like, how did I get on a podcast?
Right.
Like, how did I end up in Texas at Commodity Classic?
Right.
And it's all because of those soft skills I learned in the blue jacket that just propelled you forward. What are some of those soft skills that you think that you've learned today in your blue jacket, not even in the association level, that you know in the future, college or career, that's going to lead you forward?
I think communication and the networking skills are so important and integral into what FFA teaches our young leaders. So, we talk to people, we get to meet people, and that builds those soft skills that are super important. And we get to come to events like this and truly, highlight those things. And you asked that question, what's been your favorite part so far? And me and Riley have briefly walked throughout the exhibit hall, and everybody's so welcoming. We had a past national officer come up to us in the hallway, and we got to talking with him, and just seeing the passion that all these agriculturalists have is something that's truly inspiring.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up, Judd, that the networking level, and that it's kind of like almost like a sorority or a fraternity.
Right.
If you wore the blue jacket, you're a part of a family. Whether you live in Alaska, Texas, Florida, no matter where you are, you all share that connection. And the fact that a past national officer came up to you and was like, hey, I know that blue jacket, and I know you and what you stand for. And I think that's such a unique part of our organization that no matter where you go, you can always find someone that probably wore the same shoes as you or pantyhose at some point, But moving forward in that aspect, the podcast is mostly focused on SAEs. Like ag communications is my SAE and my passion. Obviously, we're here. What is your SAE, or maybe your favorite, because I know people have a few, that you have done the most with?
I honestly did not have more than one throughout high school. Cutting horses were my entire life. I've been riding horses since I was around 2 years old. I started showing cutting horses when I was 8, and since then it just took off, And so my family and I, we were involved in the breeding, training, showing, exercising, everything that there is to do with that industry, anything we can get our hands on, right? And so every single weekend, my family and I would haul up and down the road. You would just see 3 trailers back to back, right? So one was my grandparents, one was my uncle and cousin, one was me, my dad, and my sister, and we were just hauling to whatever horse show we could find. In 2024, I decided to take my SAE a step further, and I hauled for the National Cutting Horse Association Senior Youth World title. So that was definitely an experience, being gone every single weekend with my family. And it is something that when my year of travel is over, I really, really hope to go back to and continue my career in.
That's so exciting. Where I go to school in Florida, there's a lot of horses. I live in Gainesville, which is really close to Ocala, if you're familiar with it, the horse capital of Florida. And I have a couple friends that do cutting horses, and they love it. And I go and watch them. I rode horses to gather cows with my family on our operation, but that's as technical as I get with a horse, So I think it's quite unique that traveling every weekend and that it truly is a passion. What's your SAE, Judd?
So I had 3 that I ran throughout high school, and my favorite was my beef cattle production SAE. But just to briefly cover the other 2, I did exotic animal entrepreneurship, and we bred exotics, which is a whole nother thing that we could talk about. And then I also did some work with the botanical gardens of Texas and would help them cultivate some endangered species. But beef cattle production was where I really found my passion. I met my family, truthfully, the people that are in that industry are so welcoming. And like Riley was touching on, I mean, we have these associations that, again, they welcome you as a family. And through showing cattle my 4 years in high school, I showed semis and ORBs. I don't know what do you guys raise?
I showed club calves as far as steers went, so also haired cattle. And then as far as heifers go, I like to show bred and owned animals off of our family's cow-calf operation, so primarily Beefmaster eared cattle.
Right, there you go. One of our good teammates, he raises Brahmers or Brahmins.
Yeah, of course, Brahmers.
Yeah, Brahmers, that's what we throw the term around loosely. But going back to that beef cattle entrepreneurship SAE, again, it's opened so many doors. People are so welcoming. And then it also opened kind of a side gig that maybe I want to do something with reproduction and working with genetics there.
That's so diverse. So many interesting places, especially from exotics, all the way to genetics. Wow, goodness.
Yes,
I want to talk briefly about the association, the process of becoming elected. Over the time in the podcast, I have learned that each state does it entirely different. The ages are different. How the process of becoming elected is different. So I always like to cover that in the podcast.
The Texas FFA Association works on an area scale, kind of. So Texas FFA is broken down into 12 areas. We have 12 state officers. So each state officer represents their own respective area. Judd is part of the Area 4 Association, which spans over the area that he mentioned earlier. I'm part of the Area 9 Association. So that's that whole southeast Texas, southeast portion of Texas, So what happens is at our area conventions, we actually just had one held in Area 6, which is northeast Texas, and the rest of them will happen in May. that group of delegates decides who they want to send forward as their state officer candidate. So then, first week of June, the 12 newly elected, we call them ISOs or incoming state officers, they will go and do process, which accounts for 60% of their total score. This process consists of a test, a stand and deliver, a interview, and an engagement round. So that's 60%. And then they wait a month. They go to state convention, wherever it's being held that year, whether it's Dallas, Houston, or Fort Worth. They give a speech in front of the 17,000 members that show up to our state convention. The members vote, and that accounts for 40% of total score. So they combine those scores. Whoever has the highest score is deemed state president. Second highest score is deemed state first vice president, and everyone else is deemed a vice president. So, for instance, Judd's official title is the Texas FFA Area 4 state vice president. He's the state vice president for Area 4. Area 9, which is like I said, I represent them. They don't technically have a state vice president because they have me. So.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. It's very similar to Florida. We have 6 areas. Each area sends 2 representatives. Everyone can screen if you decide that you want to be a state officer. You kind of go through the same process. There's a stand and deliver, state degree interview, personal interview, so many different interviews. And then they slate 2 candidates from each area, go to state convention, do campaign speeches and different things of that nature. And then they're voted on and the scores are combined and then elected on. But we do not have a first vice president. Sorry, Judd, in Florida. I'm not quite sure you'd be there. But we do the highest score and the second highest score. That's our state president and then our state secretary. So that kind of plays out here. What was y'all's favorite CDEs and LDEs?
Man, I touched on Floral earlier, but LDE-wise, I did radio broadcasting.
I am so jealous that Texas has that.
Isn't that cool? Right. So we get
What the heck, Florida?
locked into a closet. We get to have our scripts, and our judges completely judge us on our voices and kind of the content of our scripts. So my Green Hand year, I got to do that. We got second at area. Sadly, there wasn't a state contest at that time, but it was a super cool experience. I loved it. And then I also did ag issues like Riley. And again, when you love to argue, but also, have some points that you can bring to the table and stand for what you believe in, I mean, I loved it. And our team was super, tight-knit. And it brings you together because you get to do all of these forums. Did you say that Florida had an ag issues?
We did.
Y'all
I
do,
just
right?
didn't do it personally.
Okay,
I always
right.
wanted to.
Yeah. And it's an amazing contest. We get to do forums, like I was saying, where you get to talk to different people in the ag industry and give them their speech or your speech. And then they give you, helpful criticism or facts that you can use in the future.
That's awesome. Yeah, when I went through, I loved extemporaneous public speaking. That was my jam. I was scared of it for the longest time. I did prepared for a really long time. Skipped the creed completely. I'm not quite sure I did that. I wish I would have continued on and done that in my early ages. But extemp was my jam, and then livestock judging as well. And of course, there's different processes and things of that nature, and served as a chapter officer, not area or district or state. That just wasn't something that I was quite ready for. I kind of poured myself into our committees and our POA. Talk about that for y'all's chapters. Did you do certain service projects, or was that kind of something that you didn't focus on? Because I know in Florida there's some chapters that are like national chapter. I have to meet all of my criteria. And then others are like, we do what we are able to do.
I didn't come from a very big school at all. I guess a 4A is not small. We were a very small 4A, though. Way out in rural East Texas. So I guess that we didn't necessarily focus on national chapter awards or anything. Of course, if we thought we could meet the criteria, we would do our best to get it done. My ACT teacher is very, very good about taking students to whatever they want to go to whenever they want to go. So at any given time, you can see her.
Quite fortunate for that.
Exactly. Any given time, she's at an FFA event. They will be at our Day at the Capitol event tomorrow, so I'm excited to see my hometown. But my school, service-based, we really, really liked the Angel Tree. The Angel Tree Project. Where
that's such a good idea.
Yes, you pick a student and you fill up a box for them with like socks and clothes and different things of that nature. We loved that one. Another favorite that I remember doing is we would go to our local nursing home at Christmas time and wrap all the doors, with wrapping paper, and we'd talk to them. And every Veterans Day, my school holds a Veterans Day program that Student Council runs. But they would also have the FFA chapter officers serve the veterans lunch afterward in our school shop. So we would serve them food, bring it to their tables, get to sit and mill about and talk to them. So those were definitely my 3 favorites that Madisonville FFA did. They're
and
very
for those of FFA chapters that are listening in, these are good ideas, man. I
Absolutely.
wish I would have thought of those. What
Right.
about you, Jen?
So Alito just bumped up to 6A, so we now have around 800 members in our chapter. And national chapter has been something that's super important to us, so we try and reach that gold star rating every year. But my freshman year, we came up with this idea of having this project, this art piece that we would hang on our ag building. And my mom happened to be an artist. She still is. That's her job. So got with her and I was like, hey, what's the over-under of you, maybe donating / helping us out with this service project to really, highlight the agriculture commodities in and around Alito. And she was all about it. So we made this huge, it's probably around the size of our backdrop back here, but painting representing Alito FFA with, the welcome and greeting signs that within the letters have different, images inside. So we did something similar to that, and that highlighted what we were doing in our community, and that became a national winning POA piece for strengthening ag.
That's super cool. It's so diverse. There's so many. I love going to national convention and during the sessions listening to all the different ideas and projects that FFA chapters come up with, because they are so unique and so customizable to each chapter. It's not a one-size-fits-all. FFA really isn't a one-size-fits-all event. But one of my favorite parts of the podcast is that we like to say we're going to strip away the jackets for a minute. Who is Riley and who is Judd outside of FFA? I know you like to ride horses, and that, I'm sure, is a family event, not just a Riley event. And I'm sure with Judd and plants, maybe you have a garden. I don't know. I'm just assuming. You tell me.
So, like you said, horses. That was it. For a very, very long time, that's almost all that I did. But throughout high school, I knew that state office and FFA as a whole has a very good look on college apps and resumes. But of course, when you're not knowing if you're getting into college or not, you want to be stacked, right? So I did anything that Madisonville would offer me. I did student councils, National Honor Societies, Beta Club. I was a class officer. I served as our senior class president. I was the National Cutting Horse Association president. Pretty much anything I could get my hands on. But I also really enjoyed sports in high school. I didn't play a lot of them because of FFA and my horses. They took up so much time. But I was very fortunate to play softball all 4 years of high school. My coach happened to be very understanding about me missing for different things like that, especially when I told her I was running for state office. She was just kind of like, yep, go ahead, have at it,
Do what you need to do. I'm proud of you.
Right. She was very supportive my senior year. All of my teachers and coaches were, with as much as I was gone. So I really enjoyed that. But at the end of the day, like, if I'm not doing something with school, or if I'm not doing something at FFA, or if I'm not on a horse, I really enjoy, me and Judd, honestly, both. We enjoy taking a little side quest, right?
Absolutely.
So we like skiing, scuba diving, anything like that we can go enjoy. And when I'm done with that, I'm probably just going to curl up in my bed and read a book. We've been trying to read more on the road, try not to be screenagers as much. So I've definitely gotten back into reading recently, but that's kind of just what I did.
There you go.
But you kind of mentioned it, garden-ish, which is similar to what we try to do at my house. But I wanted to do indoor plants. So
that's
I
awesome.
convinced my mom to let me use her guest bedroom and put a greenhouse up in it. And it had carpet.
Inside?
Yeah, it was a whole deal. So I tarped this bottom piece, and we put up this plastic greenhouse, and I had, humidity controllers and things in there. And I would keep all these plants that I would, interwork and trade with the BRIT, which is the Botanical Institute of Texas, and this lady named Dottie Woodson, who is a past A&M extension agent. So we'd grow, if she couldn't grow a plant in her greenhouse, she'd send it to me. I'd bring it back to life, do
That's
cuttings
cool.
and things. And that was kind of like my, outside the jacket, just personal hobby piece. And then my mom wouldn't let me get a dog because she was allergic. And I always say that was her biggest mistake because,
Not quite sure she can control that, Judd.
Well, instead of a dog, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make a slideshow. I was like around 8 years old. So I made a slideshow about a bearded dragon.
Oh, Lordy.
Got a bearded dragon. And
I'm not a lizard fan.
man, it started booming. And then finally she let me get a cow. And I was like, you know what, I'll stick with the cows. But I love animals. I love plants. I love taking care of things. That's something that I'm super passionate about. But yeah, Riley also touched on skiing. That's one of my biggest hobbies, and something that our family bonds over. We go up to Crested Butte, Colorado, and we shred it up there. But yes,
That's
ma'am.
awesome. Yeah, I'm not very good at skiing. No.
I'm not either.
I'm also from Florida, so
Hey,
it
yeah.
could
What, water
probably be
skiing?
that. I can water
There
ski.
we go.
It's not pretty, but I
Right.
can do it.
I can't even do that. So you're doing better than me.
I prefer to wakeboard. That's a lot more fun. I balance a little bit better. If
Yeah.
not, I'd be doing the splits out there, and it's not pretty. Oh man, that's awesome. A greenhouse in your home,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I can definitely relate to you, Riley, as far as you want to be stacked. And that was me in high school. I did FFA. I did honor society. I played sports. I was part of 4-H, Cattlemen's Association. Showed cattle all the time, like almost every weekend. And it was a love, but by the end of it, I was ready to curl up and go to bed. Quite frankly, I was curled up and ready to go to bed last night. And I will be again today after my day.
We were late.
Yes, absolutely. As we move on through our week at Commodity Classic, I have noticed that I've run into some struggles and some challenges that I've worked through, and then also some wins that might be little, but I am just so proud that they're happening. What is your biggest challenge as state officer right now, maybe for the association as a whole, that you guys are facing, and how are you combating it?
So I think there's two different answers. You almost asked like a two-parter
Yeah,
question,
sorry.
right? So we all face personal struggles, and the state association faces struggles, right? So I'm going to touch on the state association first, right? Our biggest issue, in my opinion, in Texas FFA right now is ag teacher recruitment and retention. Last summer, there were 87, I believe, open ag teacher positions. If we don't have ag teachers, we don't have ag. We don't have ag, we don't have FFA, or food, or clothes, or homes. So that's one of our major issues is teachers aren't getting the support that they need, right, to be able to teach our students effectively and for them to be able to go home, get enough rest to come back and do it the next day. Ag teaching is a full-time position. They don't get summer off. They don't get weekends. They don't have a spring break. My teacher takes kids to state conventions. Her spring break's full of our county fair. She's with kids at shows on the weekends, right? So it's a full-time position. And so something that us as a team is trying to do is get that message out there so students know that, sure, they might not want to go into teaching, but ag teaching is a rewarding position, right? So many people love coaching the teams. They love touching kids' hearts. The most impactful teachers, I would say, that most of my teammates would agree with were their ag teachers.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. We wouldn't be where we were if not for them.
And I
right?
had one of those ag teachers, love her dearly, but she stepped away from teaching this past year because of that.
Absolutely.
Her weekends and her time, and she had 2 babies at home, and she wasn't able to be there. She was like, I raise my students more than I'm at home with my own children, and it's hard, and that work-life balance, but I have the utmost respect for those teachers. Like you said, spring breaks, Christmases, every weekend of their life is committed to their children and their blue jackets, if you will, and it's just insane to watch and definitely a piece to advocate for. I'm not quite sure if Texas legislation has passed this, but I know Florida, when I was in FFA, we helped lobby for one of the House bills that allowed excused absences for all agricultural related absences in schools. Is that something in Texas? Because I know Iowa just passed it like a couple weeks ago. Is this something that's happening in Texas as well?
I know that in high school, when we missed for FFA, it was labeled extracurricular. I don't know if Alito was like that.
So most of the schools across Texas will have FFA under, a school-based absence or a school-excused absence, and I think that is somewhere in our legislation where that can be, approved.
Yeah,
But
that's
also,
awesome.
Florida, we talked about this in National Convention. Y'all are fully affiliated, which is something that's
Yes.
amazing for y'all. And at National Convention, we faced the affiliation topic. And it was kind of controversial for us because we don't have legislation in place to pay for that. So
It was definitely a work on our foundation
Right.
to get that to happen. And it was years coming. It didn't happen overnight by any means. And it's such a blessing to be able to have that affiliation and kids that maybe weren't at one point able to be part of the family in the Blue Jacket, and now they are able to. But I can say, as like a personal opinion, which everybody has one and they all stink, you know how it goes, I wish kids were more active. Yes,
Right.
they're considered a member, but like immerse yourself and become involved in the FFA. But let's go back to my original question. What is some personal challenges you faced?
To go, like, I guess finish
Yes,
answering.
let's
Yes,
finish.
sorry.
I cut you both
No,
off.
no,
I'm
you're
sorry.
fine. I'll let Judd answer both of his pieces on that here in a second. Personally, I know that obviously I'm not in the same spot as Judd. I don't have to balance college with the workload that I've got, and I'm sure that's extremely hard for them. I respect them every day. But it is hard being on the road because very rarely are Cody and I near our homes. He's from Houston. I know he can't be with us here today, but he's my travel partner, and he's from the Houston area, and I'm from about 45 minutes southeast of College Station. So it's not super often that we're near our houses, and so things will happen at home, big events. I have a 7-year-old nephew. Cody has a 6-year-old brother. We can't watch them get older, right? For this entire year, we're missing baseball games. We're missing little class graduations. We're missing the songs that they sing. We're missing everything that they do. So that's definitely hard for me, knowing that he's at home growing up and I'm not there. That's definitely hard for me. So just missing family events, like knowing that they're at home, knowing that things are happening and I can't help, I can't be around it because I am trying to do this job. But at the same time, it's really rewarding because if I can't impact Tristan right now, right, I can impact all the members that we're seeing on the road. So it's definitely a sacrifice, I guess, to not be able to see my family, but it's so, so worth it. And students remind me of that every single day.
I totally understand. Judd, we'll go ahead and have you answer this, and then they're cutting our time off.
No, you're good. So you talked about, Texas FFA and some of the biggest problems we're facing there. I just want to echo what Riley said. Our ag teacher retention rate is pretty tough right now just because of a lot of the hindrances that they're, being handed to within different school districts and things. So our other half of our teams in Austin right now actually lobbying for, increased funds or maybe, some helpful things that these ag teachers across Texas can, have in their classroom, maybe stray away from some things that are hurting them or, can make a hindrance, like we said earlier. But personal struggles, I'll try and wrap it up quick. But
You're okay.
like Riley also mentioned, balancing that college and state office life is pretty tough. So Google Calendar has been amazing. We have a shared Google Calendar with all of our teammates and our executive director and my family. And I can just type on there where I'm going to be, when, and who with, and it's been awesome using that. But, staying organized, making sure we're getting to places on time, keeping that communication up has been kind of tough, but it's so rewarding. I get a kick out of being busy and having a full schedule, so it's
Absolutely.
like give or take. But
Yeah. Being busy is such a blessing. It's
I
things
agree.
you pray for now, and then later you're like, oh my gosh, I'm living that prayer. And that's how I feel this week at Commodity Classic. But
Absolutely.
Riley, Judd, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. What an amazing conversation we had and such insightful, valuable information for our listeners. Thank you guys for going beyond the jacket with me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.